Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jentri Sinor, and like Lindsay said, today we're going to be talking about how to get the biggest bang for your bite. So to start off, we actually have a little pop quiz, and let's see if this will work. All right, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, if you want to go to kahoot.it and type in that game pin, we can play this little game/quiz real quick. Okay, it looks like we have 17 players. Anyone else want to join? 18, all right. Okay, looks like we're stuck at 18. I'm going to go ahead and start the game. All right, so what does nutrient dense mean? Okay, a food that has a high nutrient content in relation to its weight is nutrient dense. My email just popped up, so sorry. All right, question 2. Which of the following food items would be considered nutrient dense? You know, I really wish chocolate cake was nutrient dense. All right, question 3. Which of the following foods would be considered calorie dense? Correct, pepperoni pizza. All right, what is one way that you can eat more nutrient-dense foods? Correct, ask for a side of a fruit or vegetable when eating out. All right, why is eating a nutrient-dense diet important? This is our last question. Correct. Oh, wow. Everyone knew that one. Awesome. All right. KDS, third place. Ka-chow, second place. And our winner is Mary C. Okay, now back to the presentation. Thank you guys for participating. All right, so our learning objectives for today are going to be to understand what it means for a food to be nutrient dense, be able to identify nutrient dense foods, and know how to incorporate nutrient dense foods into your diet. So first we need to know what are nutrients. So we have macronutrients, which are nutrients that your body needs in large amounts. That's going to be protein. Protein has 4 calories per gram, and it should make up 10 to 25% of your total calories each day. Next, we have carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram as well, and they should make up 40 to 60% of your total calories each day. And lastly, we have fat. Fat has 9 calories per gram. It's the most calorie dense of the macronutrients, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And it should make up 20 to 35% of total calories. So all foods are composed of these macronutrients, and these macronutrients are what make up the calories that we eat each day. Alcohol is actually technically a macronutrient, and it has 7 calories per gram, but it's not essential, so we don't really talk about it much. Protein and fat are considered essential, meaning that your body can't produce them on its own, and it has to be obtained through your diet. So you have to eat protein and fat, whereas carbohydrates, your body's really cool and it can actually produce it on its own through a lot of different steps. So for micronutrients, these are nutrients that your body needs in smaller amounts. They're going to include your vitamins and your minerals. Vitamins are necessary for energy production, immune function, blood clotting, and other functions. And minerals are going to play an important role in growth, bone health, fluid balance, and several other processes within the body. So when it comes to nutrient deficiencies, according to the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, or NHANES, the top nutrient deficiencies in America are calcium, iron, magnesium, potassium, vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin D. So when it comes to foods that are nutrient dense versus calorie dense, dense foods are going to be the ones that are high in nutrients but relatively low in calories. They're going to contain a lot of vitamins, minerals, complex carbs, protein, and healthy fats. When it comes to calorie dense foods, these are going to be the foods that are higher in calories and lower in nutrients. They typically also have added fat, sugar, and salt, which also makes them really tasty and easier to overeat. So the benefits of a nutrient-dense diet, short term, you're going to have improved energy, improved sleep, improved digestion, improved body composition, and improved immunity. And some of the long-term benefits include weight management, risk reduction for many chronic diseases, diabetes prevention, cardiovascular disease risk reduction, and nutrient-dense diets can also promote heart health, of course, and reduced effects of aging. So here are 5 of the most nutrient-dense foods. There are a lot, but here's just 5 of them. So salmon's going to be one of these foods. It's going to be high in omega-3 fatty acids, protein, magnesium, potassium, selenium, and B vitamins. And the next one's going to be kale. I personally don't really like kale, but it is really nutrient-dense. It's high in fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, and vitamin A. Seaweed is actually a very nutrient-dense food, which I love, like seaweed salad at sushi restaurants. I always get that. It's high in iodine, calcium, iron, magnesium, and manganese. I can never say that one. And then garlic. Garlic actually has vitamin C, B1, B6, calcium, potassium, copper, manganese, sulfur, and selenium. And then lastly, we have shellfish, which contains high amounts of vitamin B12, vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, potassium, selenium, iron, and copper.
Sí.
So here's how you can actually calculate the nutrient density of your foods. So you can take the amount of the nutrient per 100 grams of the food item, and then you divide it by the recommended daily allowance, or the RDA, for that nutrient for your age and gender. So let's say that a food item has 25 grams of protein per 100 grams of that food. So the RDA is 0.8 grams per kilogram. So let's just say that your protein goal is 60 grams. So we're going to take the 25 grams of protein that's in that food item, divide it by your goal of 60 grams, and you're going to get 0.42. So the next step is that you're going to take the calories per 100 gram of the food item and divide it by the recommended daily calorie intake for your age and gender. So let's say that the food item contains 120 calories per 100 grams of food, and you take 120 divided by 2,000. Let's say that's your recommended daily calorie intake, and you get 0.06. So the third and last step is you divide the number that you got using the RDA calculation, so our first calculation, by the number you got in the second calculation. So the nutrient density of this food is going to be 0.42 divided by 0.06, which is going to give us 7. And a food that is nutrient dense is going to be a number that's greater than 1. So this would be a great source of protein.
Hey y'all, I'm Julia. So first I'm going to talk to y'all about sources of nutrient-dense foods. So we're going to go over canned, fresh, and frozen foods. You're good. Okay, so for fresh food, I did the pros and cons of each one. So for fresh food pros, so it is the most nutrient dense. Pretty much nutrients, they begin to decline once your produce is harvested or picked. So it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. It also has the most source of fiber. It's the most environmentally friendly. You can support local farmers too, and to most people, it tastes the best. However, it is the most expensive. It has a short shelf life, but refrigeration does help. And then also, rinsing produce before you eat it is necessary and safe just in case bacteria and pesticide residue is still on it. And next we have frozen food. So pros for frozen food, it does have a longer shelf life and it remains nutrients for a longer time so you can keep it for a while. Also with frozen food, it's picked and frozen at peak ripeness, so you're getting the best quality that's possible. It's pre-washed, so you don't have to worry about it being contaminated or dirty, and it's also relatively less expensive than fresh food. However, for cons, so frozen food goes through a process called blanching. And so basically that's heating it at a very high temperature just for a little bit, but it inactivates the unwanted enzymes that degrade color and texture during frozen storage. So through this process of blanching, it reduces not a lot, but just some of the nutrient content. And then last, we have canned food. So pros for canned food, it is inexpensive, it's pre-cooked, pre-washed, it has the longest shelf life, and it's picked, peeled, and canned at peak ripeness as well. Just cons when it comes to canned food, and this isn't all of them, but label reading is important because there could be added salt, sugars, and preservatives. And some people, this is just another opinion statement, but the soft texture of canned food is unappealing to some people, so that is a possible con, but that's really just based on opinion, so yeah. And now I'm going to talk about ways to cook to preserve nutrients and kind of different methods of cooking and how effective they are. So first we have boiling, which is submerging food in either water or broth and boiling it at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And for boiling, so nutrient loss depends on how long the food is boiled. So if you're boiling vegetables for a long amount of time, then more nutrients are going to be lost that way. This is basically because of the high temperature and large water volume. So those two things together, it dissolves the water soluble vitamins and about 60% of minerals in produce. So think like vitamin C and then your B vitamins, those are the water soluble ones. And then steaming, so this is another water-based method. It uses water, but the steam cooks the food instead, so it's not submerged. This method, it preserves more nutrients than boiling because the water-soluble vitamins are better retained in food. This is because steaming uses gentle heat, whereas boiling is more of like a harsher heat. The only downside to steaming is that it's kind of difficult to get right and conserve a lot of the food's flavor. So this could possibly encourage you to add butter, salt, or other spices to it, which could decrease the nutritional value, but it is a good option for preserving nutrients. Next, we have sauteing. So this is, do soups maintain any more nutrients, or are they dissolved still? That's a very good question. I could get back to you on that. I'll email you later. For sauteing though, so it's usually used for vegetables and meat. And this is when food is cooked on the stove using a small amount of fat. So either butter, oil, margarine, cooking spray, coconut oil, whatever fat you want to use to cook your food in. The cooking time is shorter, so less nutrients are lost with this method. And as well, so if you cook your vegetables in extra virgin olive oil, there's been several studies that show that it can increase the antioxidant capacity in several fruits and vegetables. The study said that there were, they compared vegetables that were cooked with and without extra virgin olive oil, and they found that the ones that were cooked after contained more phenolic compounds, which are phytochemicals found in plant tissues which have antioxidant properties. And then we have baking and roasting. So basically just roasting vegetables in the oven, using a small amount of oil to coat, and then whatever spices you'd like to incorporate too. With this, nutrient loss depends on time baked and temperature. So the hotter you bake, the higher temperature, and the longer time, the more nutrients you're gonna lose from your vegetables doing it this way. But the good side about baking and roasting is that it's very easy to do. Depending on how long you bake it for, like say you don't do it for too much, it will like preserve a lot of the nutrients and it tastes very good. And the same thing with sauteing using extra virgin olive oil helps boost antioxidant properties in this method too, so yeah. And last, we have deep frying. So this is when food is completely submerged in oil, heated between 285 to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and a deep fryer or a large pot is necessary for this method. Health-wise, this is not an ideal option. It does not cause as much nutrient loss as boiling, but the food is usually, when it comes to deep frying, usually foods are coated or breaded, and then as well, the food soaks up the oil while it fries, and there's a major increase in calorie and fat content when it comes to deep frying. And last but not least for my part, I just want to talk about kind of shopping for nutrient-dense foods and kind of the grocery store layout, just something to keep in mind. Ever since I found out about this, it's always been in my head. And so I just thought it would be fun information to share. But usually in a grocery store, if you think about the layout, and this is going to be different for everyone, but most of them are the same, the more nutrient dense foods, the healthier foods are going to be around the perimeter of the store. So as you can see in this picture, the green boxes are the nutrient dense foods and where more of the healthier options are. And then as you can see in the middle, in the like the red rectangles, the processed foods are usually going to be in the aisles and stuff like that. So kind of whenever I go grocery shopping, I just think I always make a list ahead of time, and I like to go around the perimeter of the store and then go down the aisles if I need something specific. But otherwise, if I were to just go down each aisle, I'd buy a whole bunch of stuff that I don't need. So yeah.
All right. So I'm sure you guys are dying to know how you can incorporate some of these foods into your diet. So first, let me address these few questions really quick. So does air frying cause much nutrient loss? I personally love air frying. It just basically uses really hot air to get things really crispy. You're not really submerging it in oil, so it's going to be a way healthier option. And soups, as long as you're not boiling the vegetables and things beforehand, if you're just cooking it all together, the main nutrient loss is that the boiling water, when you do, you're going to discard the boiling water. So you're going to kind of just get rid of those nutrients. But if you're kind of cooking everything together, there is a little bit less of a nutrient loss. And as long as you're not just boiling it for hours on a high temperature. But air frying and soups are also great ways to incorporate nutrient-dense foods into your diet. Okay, now I'm ready. So some good snacks. We have Greek yogurt with berries, so like blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. Those are awesome. With some chopped walnuts. You can also do chopped almonds are great. Cashews, any unsalted nut, really. And I like to do a sprinkle of cinnamon. I think it's really good. An avocado and salsa. So basically, if you get half of an avocado with a tablespoon or two of salsa and just kind of put it in the middle where that little hole is, and a pinch of sea salt, you can just eat it with a spoon. It's delicious. I know it sounds weird, but I promise it's good. Another example is half of a roasted sweet potato. So just roast in the oven at 400 for like 45 minutes. Add a tablespoon of almond butter, a little bit of honey. You can also add cinnamon. It's so good. And veggies and hummus. A cup of baby carrots, a cup of snap peas. You can even do celery, and a couple tablespoons of hummus. Great option. And so here's just kind of like these next few slides are maybe an example of what a really nutrient-dense day would look like. The full recipes on all of these, you can't click the link, but if you look at the name at the bottom, you can search them and find the full recipe. So this is a black bean breakfast burrito with some virgin olive oil, onion, black beans, salsa, eggs, whole grain tortillas, some low-fat cheese, avocado, and if you want, some cilantro. For lunch, a Mediterranean quinoa bowl is a great option. Salmon, one of the foods that Jentri mentioned earlier, is one of the top nutrient-dense foods. This recipe specifically does use kale. If you cook it right or just prepare it right, it's good. But if you eat it raw, it can be kind of bitter and gross. So if you don't like kale, you can use another type of greens in this bowl. So this one has salmon, quinoa, kale or other greens, cucumber, cherry tomatoes, red onion, Kalamata olives, chickpeas, also called garbanzo beans, feta cheese, avocado, and tzatziki. And if you don't like tzatziki, you can also do some olive oil and lemon juice. It's really good on things like this. So for dinner, I really love like a one sheet pan option. You can just kind of throw everything on one pan. It takes about that. Granted, it takes the same amount of time to cook. So one example would be shrimp, peeled and deveined, broccoli, cauliflower, salt, pepper, really any other like herbs and spices that you want, lemon juice, olive oil, some grated Parmesan cheese, and you can top it with cilantro. Shrimp, like Jentri also mentioned, is really good. Shellfish is really nutrient dense. If you don't like shrimp, of course, you can also substitute for chicken or tofu or something like that. I also wanted to include some really helpful apps. I kind of did some research on what apps that you can just pull out if you're not really sure what nutrients are in certain foods. So this one's just called Nutrients. It's you can get it on Android or iPhone, and it has a bunch of nutrition facts on tens of thousands of foods, as vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fats, fatty acids, sugars, sterols, which are found in plants, and even compounds like caffeine and things like that. So I thought that was cool. This one, It's called Forks Plant-Based Recipes. Typically plants like vegetables, fruit, things like that are going to be really nutrient dense. So if you're not really sure where to start, this would be a really good option. It has over 600 whole food plant-based recipes, and they add recipes weekly. So even if you're not vegetarian or vegan, you can add some protein in there to these options. And they also have simple step instructions and a built-in shopping list that you can personalize. And the last one that I have is MyPlate Calorie Counter. I don't know if you guys have heard of MyFitnessPal, but it's really similar to that. But this is based on the MyPlate. If you guys have not heard of that, you can use it to track your nutrition, your meals. You can create and save your own meals and recipes. They have a bunch of healthy recipes and a lot more, like things like physical activity. So the main takeaway of this whole presentation, I hope you guys were able to understand what it means for a food to be nutrient dense, which is high in nutrients but relatively low in calories, contains vitamins, minerals, complex carbohydrates, lean protein, and healthy fats, all super important to our health. Determining if a food is nutrient dense versus calorie dense, so chocolate cake versus salmon. Being able to identify nutrient dense foods, so those macronutrients versus micronutrients, and how important those are to get, how important it is to get all of those in our diet, and incorporating some of these top nutrient dense foods like salmon, kale, seaweed, garlic, and shellfish. And lastly, knowing how to incorporate nutrient dense foods into your diet. So those frozen, fresh, and canned foods, what are the pros and cons of each of those? How to boil, steam, saute, bake, roast, and fry, and what is going to be the best option to keep those nutrients. And lastly, shopping for and incorporating nutrient dense foods. I hope you guys got some good recipe ideas and are going to use those apps. And does anybody have any questions about the handout?
Oh, and also the QR code. So if you scan that using your camera, it'll take you to a handout from this presentation that has pretty much just a summary of everything that we went over.